guys, and welcome to What in the Indie. This is where I talk about all things indie publishing. My name is Carter Pugh. Welcome. I'm so glad that you guys are here. So, What in the Indie kind of was birthed out of a desire to help my fellow authors who have been wanting to grab lunch or coffee. And I so want to do that with each and every one of you, but unfortunately, I do still have a day job and I just don't have the time. So, this is my way of grabbing this. Just think of this segment as you're grabbing coffee with me, and in the comments, leave any questions you may have. And in the next episode or the next, I'll get to them. So, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about indie publishing. So, for me, when I get asked at events, or when I hear people get asked at events, what did you self-publish? And to me, and this may be a hot take, maybe not, I answer no, I'm indie. To me, it's different. Yes, I am my own publisher, but I truly see this as a career and a business, and I treat it as such. And self-publishing to me means you just wrote a book on your own with your own accord and volition, and you didn't go through all the many steps that I believe indie authors take and the expense. So it's not just my mom wrote a book once, it's on Amazon, maybe sold 10 copies to our friends. No, I have sold probably, this may seem like a big number or a small number depending on where you are in publishing. And I do believe there's a little bit of luck, a lot of ingredients that get you to indie publishing all the way to whatever your goal may be. But this is a rough estimate, but probably of Death Rattle, I've probably sold around 20,000 copies since it came out in 2023. So that's about 2.5 years. And I hired an editor. She is a professional. She used to work for a publishing company. I paid for my character art, my artists. Like it's basically a big investment with a gamble of a return. And the return can be significant if you are willing to market yourself and do everything, that all the hard work that it takes, because it is a business and you have to put in hours, you have to do some of the work that can feel tedious, but it does pay off. So basically, going back to what is an indie author, is someone who becomes their own publisher and is a business person. They have decided that they want to bypass traditional publishing, which is an amazing thing. And I do attribute this a lot to social media, that we can bypass the traditional publishers at first. Sometimes that's a goal of ours. I wouldn't say no to a traditionally published deal or a repub. I am currently querying agents, and my goal as a business owner is always, what is that next step? How can I elevate? Where am I going next? What are my goals? I'm never stagnant. I'm always fighting and looking to that next thing. And of course, I will make this a success and have made this success being my own publishing company. But there are some doors that I would like to open that, as it stands, I cannot open on my own. So that is a reason why I'm querying agents. But as of now, my publisher is called Carter Pugh Writes LLC. And it has been one of the most amazing things in my life that I've ever done. I decided to do it, start writing I told my husband in 2020, going into 2021, we always set our intentions for the following year for New Year's Eve. And I had gotten back to reading in such a strong way in 2020, as I think most of us did, because we were at home a lot more. And I told him, I said, hey, I'm going to write a book. And he was like, I just got chills. Like, where'd this come from? And I told him that I'd always, journaled a lot as a kid, loved creative writing class. But I grew up, we had what we needed, but we were, poor, on the poorer side. And I just wanted, I think I was born into this life wanting so much. And the career I was going to pick, I just needed to be stable. And I had no idea about becoming a writer. I didn't do super well in school, and I got bored with stuff a lot. So I just didn't know. The thought of being a author was never in my head. It was just something I enjoyed. And I was in a writers group with my sister, and I just thought it was fun. And then was always such a big reader. I think I started reading at like 3 or 4, like super early. I have an older sister, so that can be kind of pertinent to that. But I read for a long time, and then got into my career and started my own business, and kind of fell off out of writing for or reading for many years. And when I fell back into it, I fell hard. I found romantasy, I found romance books, and romance books kind of brought me into this world because, when I was growing up, it was like romance books were Danielle Steele, and now that is her books are great and kind of paved the way for all of us, but the romance books of today are, we have murder, we have thrillers, we have monster romance, we have sports romance. I mean, any kind of genre, subgenre you can think of, we've got it for you. And I just think that there is no, I mean, everyone talks about their TBR being so long. I mean, it's endless. I will, and I read a ton. When I'm writing, it's harder. Since January, I've probably read close to 45 books this year, but it's because I'm going to slow down and probably only be rereading my book that's coming out later this year. So I read a ton, but we'll never be able to get through all of it. And I think we're not starved for things to read, which I am so thankful for as a reader. But anyways, going back to when from conception, I still have too many ideas, which is not a bad thing, but I think Death Rattle, when I decided that was the direction we were going to go, I had read Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas, and I was just so obsessed. I had never read a book like that, and since I've read several that are wonderful, but I had never read a romantasy that was truly like a murder mystery, and that's what drove the story. And it hooked me on a deeper level. And I like true crime, I like documentaries, I like a thriller, I like horror, and I just wanted to write a book not only that had both romantasy and kind of that thriller, horror, mystery, murder mystery kind of undertone, but I I wrote Clark as somebody who has suffered and went through a lot in her life on a deep level, and has finally decided that she's going to pull herself up out of the mud and out of her depression and take her life in her own hands, which she does. And then everything goes horribly wrong, which, can be true to real life. And with my series, what I want to do is show you, even when the worst happens, there's still hope, and there's still light, and there will be. And that's just the way the universe, the world, whatever construct we live in, it can be. I mean, if you're still alive, there's still hope. And so, yeah, that's just a long way to saying like how I started and why I started, and also why I chose to go the indie route, because I already own a business with my husband. I'm 40 now. We've owned it since we were 25. It's a business where I really learned how to be, yes, whatever service or product you're providing, a lot of the times I don't know, depending on the industry, that's 40% of it. The rest of the 60 is you're selling yourself. You are part of the product, whether you like it or not. It's just the reality of it. And I already knew that, and branding and everything was really important to me. And my husband, he's an artist, he's a graphic designer, and he helped with the branding of our current business. And we knew from the beginning that we wanted to come out swinging. We wanted people to recognize me and our books and our branding immediately. And it does happen, and it's so amazing. It does pay off. But I was just too impatient to query Death Rattle. I wanted it out there. It was almost like, I've said this before, like compulsion. Like when I wrote it, I needed people to read it. Almost a lot of Clark's undertones and a lot of the things she went through is not completely reality, but has elements of things I've personally went through. And some of them, it's funny to get to talk to you guys and tell you what are true stories in Death Rattle, and to see your faces. We all go through a lot in our life that can be unbelievable at times, but I just needed her story to be out there. I had told my husband, of course I want this to be successful. Of course I want this to change our lives. But especially Death Rattle, if one person felt seen and felt they could see themselves in Clark's story, then I've already succeeded. And that happened very early on. And the rest kind of felt like gravy to me. And I taught myself how to write in that book. I took one creative writing class, and I went to community college for a year and a half before I ended up going to technical school after that. But I have no formal background. And I truly don't believe you need it. I believe you need a desire to write and get your story out there. And my editor's brilliant. She went to Duke University. She has a wonderful mind, and she's just fabulous. And she has that knowledge. I don't have to have it. I've gotten so much better at it now because I understand it. But, I understand how stories structure because I read a ton. And Death Rattle will always be so special to me. Will I query the next series? Yeah, I might, depending on how patient I can be. But for me, being an indie author, there wasn't really an alternative when I started this because I was not willing to wait. I was not willing to wait on anything. And that's why I chose this route. But I will say, you're not just a self-published author. I think that's beneath the title of what we are. We are storytellers without a leash. Nobody gets to tell us what we can write. If we can write as explicitly as we want. We can have creative freedom. We don't have to write what's hot and sexy, although it's fine if we do. We don't have to pick a Tuesday to launch our book. I'm really big into numerology, and every single book and every single date has a meaning, and I believe there's power in that, but that's my strategy. That's why we can write genre bending things that you haven't quite read before because we're the ones publishing. So, as long as we are writing the stories that are true to us, and, no one's saying, maybe make it, I don't know what a traditional publisher would tell you to do. But, in my last book, we are going all in. Everyone's getting a spicy scene. And I just think it is a wonderful part of the creative process as a writer to have no boundaries and to get these stories to you that you might not have ever read something quite like what we write as indie authors. Because if you read mostly traditionally published authors, sometimes they have constraints that we just don't. Or they have, let's say, they have a contract and they have to put out 5 books in a series, but truly there's only content or planned content for 3 books. That's when you get those books that are like, wow, that was a filler book, but I get why they had to do it. We don't have to do that. So all that to say is welcome. Indie authors are fabulous. We are hard workers. We are, I think, becoming almost like how small businesses are the backbone, or should be the backbone of our society. I think indie authors are becoming the backbone of the publishing industry because we are driving unique and creative stories, and we are getting republished. We're getting book deals. We're getting movie deals. Things are happening to people I know every single day, and I'm so happy to see it. And I really can't wait to see what happens for all of us on this journey. But yeah, in the comments, drop your questions. In the next episode, we'll talk more about marketing, which you guys, I know, want to know. I've been asked several times if I have a marketing background. No, I've just done a company for a while, and it's just, I learn by doing. So here we are, and welcome to What in the Indie.